excited to be with you. And we want to start off today's episode, as we always do, with a review from one of you. If you have not done this yet again, this is one of the easiest ways that you guys can support us is just to leave a review. Throw down that 5 stars, give us a couple sentences, let us know the impact this has had on your life. Really encourages us and it helps other people to find us. So we would really appreciate it. This is from KIMOS08. It says, you pointed us to Christ. We were in the midst of chaos in our marriage, and I stumbled upon your podcast. I then got my husband to listen. You have led us, been our guide, and turned our life and marriage toward Christ. This ultimately saved our marriage. We are beyond blessed to include your podcast in our life. Thank you for walking beside us, even if you had no idea. The impact will last a lifetime. Wow. You guys just have no idea how encouraging that is to Brad and myself, and encourages us just to keep going. And it means the world to us to know that this pointed you to Christ, because I think that's our biggest goal, is to always point you towards Christ, because he is the one who makes an impact on marriages and lives. Yeah. So that means so much. Okay. So Brad and I, we're tired. We've definitely had a couple of weeks of intensity. Yeah. Lots of family, which we were very excited about. We love having family and company, but we definitely are worn down, to say the least. This is like one of those, we are recording at almost 7 p.m. at night. Yeah. Which, by the way, I think might be the first time that we've recorded at 7 p.m. at night.
I don't know. I don't think so.
Well, alrighty then, Brad.
We've done this for what, 4 years now? We
don't typically ever record at night. If we're going to record, it's usually during the day. And the reason why is because both you and I, our brains start to disintegrate after this period of time. Yeah. We're just like those old people already, where it's like, well, we done had dinner by 5 and it's time for us to wind down. I don't know where that accent came from.
I was wondering the same thing.
This is what happens. You guys just need to be prepared that today's episode is either going to be just all Holy Spirit, or we're just really going to make our way through. But I'm just trusting the Holy Spirit is going to come through. We really have a message on our heart, I think, because of our own experiences and even things that we're walking through currently that remind us of who we serve. And so I think our goal tonight is to remind you of who you serve. We're praying that you have absolutely chosen to follow Jesus. And so that's going to be our hope tonight. But I brought this up to Brad, and so we want to have a discussion kind of about the middle of the miracle. Why are you drinking your coffee or whatever it is right now, as I'm about to transition over to you?
I didn't know you were going to transition to me.
Just a side note. So now I have to edit to put things on YouTube, which is like awful for me. I'm still trying to figure it all out. It's getting faster. I'm getting better. And give me grace for all the things that are incorrect. I'm sure some of you are on here going like, I don't know why they do it this way, but okay, we're learning. But so in the beginning, usually I'm the one who gives a review. And I laugh because when I'm talking, Brad looks at it as a free zone to do whatever he wants to do.
Yeah, this isn't live.
No. But the program that I use, like we have a camera that captures both of us, and then we have 2 cameras, one on each of us individually, right? And so the camera that's capturing both of us, it wants to go to that like very often. And I'll just laugh because I'll be talking and then all of a sudden it'll go to both of us and you're just doing like 50 adjustments.
I mean, I'm trying to get comfy. We need new chairs.
Okay. For any of you guys who have been listening to us for any length of time, you know the dilemma we went through.
I thought these were the chairs.
They're not.
No.
There's
chairs at this coffee shop down the road. Those are the chairs.
Oh, maybe we should go see if we can trade them.
I mean,
maybe
all they could say is no. Right? But those are the chairs.
Interesting. Who knew? It's the coffee shops that have the in for the right chairs.
Yeah.
But no, I think, the reality is that there are a lot of people that look at our story. For those of you who know our story and have walked along this journey with us in so many ways, and you know, a lot of people who listen to us are in some mode of, you know, crisis, or they're trying to develop their marriage in some way, shape, or form. And they look at our marriage and our lives and where we are right now, and they just want to be there, like right away. And I get that. But I don't think we've necessarily talked about the middle of the miracle mess, because I think that was the place where I actually was tempted to give up the most on our marriage. Yeah. And I think that's where most people are tempted to give up, is just in the middle of the miracle. And I wanted to kind of talk about it and lay that out for people, so that anyone who may be tuning in today and you feel like, man, yeah, I'm ready to give up. And we always encourage everyone you need to listen to the Lord, right? As to when he says to go and when he says to stay. But if someone's just in the middle of the miracle mess, we want to remind people that the middle of the miracle is messy. Yeah. So we have different perspectives on this. Okay. No, stop drinking the tea as I'm going to transition to you.
I can talk and drink.
That doesn't...
Not simultaneously, but when you have a discussion with someone and they're drinking, like, it's fine. Okay.
All right. So your middle of the miracle mess, I mean, obviously was both of us, it was different for both of us. Yeah. But what would you classify? Like, how does that develop in your mind? Like, what do you focus on? How do you help stay focused on God in the middle of the messes in the miracle? There's a lot I just said there.
Yeah, you have like an alliteration thing going on.
I do, and I'm not meaning to. This is what happens after 7 p.m. at night.
Well, I mean, you sent this topic to me way before that.
But right now, in this moment.
So how do you stay focused?
Like, what do you personally do? I mean, currently, right now, in this season of our life, we're in one of these places. Yeah. Which is why I think it's heavy on our heart. Yep. And it's, you know, not anything to do with our marriage, but just in general. And I think so we've been walking through this avenue in another aspect than we.
So everyone keeps like, and there's only like a small circle. No, and it's fine right now. One day we'll share. Yeah. You know, but right now we're not going to. So unless you're the lucky small circle, right? But I've had people ask me specifically in this time is like, how are you handling this? And actually before you even came up with this topic, this is going to sound super bougie. It's not, but it's going to sound super bougie. But I was sitting in our sauna. Right? Now, let me back up.
The portable infrared sauna.
Yeah, it's a portable infrared. It's not like all the classic wood and all this stuff. It's just it's a cool little addition in our garage. But I was sitting there this morning because I do that early in the morning. I try to get in there before you wake up. And I was praying, and that hit me. It was like, everyone's like, how are you handling this? How are you handling this? And I've given a ton of different answers, really. I've given the answers of like, well, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to be? Like, kind of those, like throwing a question back at him. But ultimately, I'm not handling it. That's really what it comes down to. I'm not handling it. The only way I'm able to get through this is because of God, period. Like, he's the one that's handling it. Yeah. Right. I'm really not. And that was like this, I don't know, epiphany or whatever I had in the sauna. I know it sounds so whatever, but no, it hit me in there, because I'm like, I'm not really handling this at all, and I think it goes back to, I mean, yes, God's my priority, right? My walk with Jesus is my priority, and I've talked about that multiple episodes, because that is true. It's my core. Not that I'm perfect. Yeah. But this is my core. But, the experiences I've had in my life and with my walk with Christ and my lack of my walk with Christ before and all these things, those experiences have helped me navigate tough times in my life, right? Whether it's now and even now, I don't feel like it's tough. And I know you have a different perspective, but I really don't. I don't feel like there's this tough time because ultimately I know that God's in control, right? And that's not a flippant or Christianese way to handle things, because absolutely we're supposed to have action in our lives. We don't just sit back, right? And just like, oh, well, whatever, God's in control. That's not what I'm talking about at all. But it's a realization of that is a fact, that God is in control. I mean, in our marriage, like the way it came around and fast forward to where we're at now, like there's, I look at that as like what you were saying, like you felt like quitting. Well, yeah, because you weren't handling it. Like you really didn't have a handle on what was going on.
Oh yeah, there was no control on my part.
Only God. Well, not even the control, just going through it. Like, it's the classic question. Like I've been asked multiple times, like, how are you handling this? It's like, I'm not really handling it at all. Like, this is not, now I'm very, like, I don't get excited, like, or excitable, right? Like,
is that what you think I am?
I mean, if that's what you want to infer with me, I'm not saying
I'm
we're
not
opposite.
inferring anything.
Yes, you are.
I said, is that what you think I am?
Oh gosh, you almost made me spit out this horrible.
That's why we don't drink while talking.
Mushroom, whatever you bought or something. I don't even know what this is. We're so crunchy. Oh my goodness. I just want a Coke Zero. That's it. That's all I want. I'm not. Well, yeah, you are a little bit excitable.
Excited. Just exciting, maybe.
No, I mean you are exciting.
Okay,
for sure. But what I meant was like
more emotional, more emotionally in tune.
No,
more accessible.
I feel that I'm emotionally in tune.
Okay.
Okay, laugh at my husband. Like I do. I feel like I'm in tune.
Okay.
Emotion, not in your tune, right? Like I'm not harmonizing with your
not
emotional.
In your tune.
Well, I'm not harmonizing with you.
That's a special tune.
Yeah, I'm doing my solo acts.
Definitely, we process through things differently, and that's that's healthy and good. Yeah, it's it's for me for sure. When going through difficulties, it is when I'm walking out this process. I think even with the Lord is. I'm definitely going to cry more. I have a lot more emotion when it comes to just, I have to almost get it out for sure. Because I'm typically not a big crier and just in general, but in big things for sure. It's like that pent up emotion.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
can feel.
Did we talk about this a few episodes ago? When we were doing our kiss thing?
I could lay it again. I'm not sure where we're going with this. So,
yeah. I mean, I was talking about emotions.
Yeah, emotional intimacy.
Emotional intimacy. Did I go into like how I did I go into the story that I gave when we went to go speak? Plug. If we're gonna go speak, you find out, come out. But no, like what what I mean?
You did not give that story.
So like we'll get into my emotions then. Mm-hmm. If that's fine with you. I'll show you how.
And now our episode is over.
Yeah, I'll show you. It's so funny. No, so with all that's going on, right? You like told me, right? And I processed it. I processed a lot different. Mm-hmm. Right? First, you had sat on it all day, right? And so you had more time. But anyway, so when you told me, I really did not have a reaction. I don't know if you can correct me.
No.
If I'm wrong. Right. I really didn't have a reaction. I was just kind of like, okay. And kind of processing it. But then I was like stuffing. I did not like, I don't know why I'm saying that. I was stuffing my emotions down, really. I didn't want to, I don't know. I just didn't want to react. I don't know. It was a weird thing for me to process. I was just trying to figure it out. And I remember I told you, like, oh, I'm going to go take a shower because I just got home from work. So I'm going to go get cleaned up. So I go get in the shower, and, you know, if you guys have listened to us for a while, like, like that's like a prayer closet for me sometimes, right? Not all the time, but, you know, it's like this time I'm alone. You know, there's nothing going on around me. You know, it's just me. And, so I was in there and I was praying, and, you know, a lot of things I was praying, as I was praying it was like hitting me it was like very woe is me attitude, right? It was kind of, you know, selfish as I was processing this. I felt like I was like, wait a minute, a lot of these are like this selfishness, and it's not necessarily horrible, but anyway, as I'm figuring this out and praying and like, God, you know, what do I do? What, you know, why this and all this stuff? And I broke down and I was crying, right? And I was processing that out, you know, in my prayer, just very raw prayer, you know? And then that's kind of when it hit me. There was like a lot of these things that I'm feeling are just kind of selfish, right? Questioning me, right? Questioning myself. Like, did I do these things right? Did I not do these things? You know, all these things, right? And so then I'm done. I'm good, right? Finish showering, you know, get clean, you know, get dressed and all that. And I come back out to where you're at, and you're in the kitchen and you're like chopping up veggies for dinner, like dinner prep. And I was just sitting over by the table. And I don't even know what I was looking at. Like, at first I was looking at you, but then I was just kind of zoning out, thinking about all this. And during that time, you came over and hugged me. And when you did, like, I just broke again, right? And that was the emotions I was trying to bottle up, you know, and I shouldn't have been, because we need to be in this together, right? But you came over and you just held me as I just broke down for a minute, and I just needed that. Right. And, you know, we prayed and just kind of like gave it, you know, and for me, from that point on, I haven't really broken down again, because I think at that point I was like, okay, God, one, I felt like a lot of those emotions were, or I mean, it was founded. You know, they were correct emotions to have, but a lot of it I felt was like this looking in a mirror and being, you know, selfish in the sense, right, of what was going on. And I'm like, so that kind of hit me. And, you know, from that point on, I just hadn't, you know, had to cry it out, hadn't like questioned myself anymore. Kind of, you know, you do what you do, and that's it. Like, if I'm in step with Christ, then, you know, the outcome of what's going on, like, I can't control that, but I know I can control my relationship with Christ. Like, I can have that, and that's going to help guide me through everything. So, you know, as this time has gone on and we're kind of in the middle of this mess, which I don't even like to call it a mess.
Yeah. Middle of the miracle.
Yeah. Because I can just see, and I could see what could happen.
Yeah.
I could see this potential of all these things, these exciting things. Like, I could really just see it. And I think it's hard for a lot of people to see things like that. And I don't advocate for this, but because they haven't gone through something like that. So a lot of these things, like when I went through, when I, you know, got wrecked on the side of this road, when I decided to follow Christ, you know, all these things, when I was running back and trying to figure everything out, you know, I had, you know, somebody told us, and I don't think I saw it until then, but it was our old pastor from when we got here. And he had told me one time, and I'm probably going to get it mixed up because I'm horrible with quoting, but he just said, I'm not seeing what you did. I don't see you now. I can see what God's going to do in your life. Like, I can see the potential that you can't see. Right. I mean, we're even, and that's like a normal theme throughout the Bible. You know, that's exactly a normal theme throughout your walk with Christ. Like, he sees what you can't.
Yeah.
He, he understand, like, yeah, you sin all the time. You know, you are walking in this flesh on earth. And so you're having to deal with that. We're not perfect, but he can see where you could be. He could see that potential of you when you're chasing after Christ. So we were watching that TV show, David right now, which is, it's been good, you know, so far. I'm not giving a full review or anything like that, but you know, it's been pretty cool. But even in that, when Samuel's, you know, anointing David to be the next king, he says something along those lines, you know, and he's like, we look on the outside, God looks on the inside, but also he sees this, he sees what you're going to be. He sees what you can be. Of course we have choice, but if you're in his will, like, he can see all these things. And I think that I have that not unique perspective in this situation, and with, you know, with me specifically, I feel like I have this unique perspective where I can see this potential of this amazing miracle and this amazing future. And, you know,
I think we actually get a front row seat of that a lot of times with couples that we coach.
Yeah.
Where we get to sit in the middle of the miracle with couples who are feeling hopeless, and we get a chance to see ahead of them because we've walked ahead of them. And so we know, like, if you go after God and you do the work, a miracle absolutely can happen. Yeah. You know, and it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing to witness. And I think, you know, I've been reading through the Psalms now for a while. I go through with a group of women. And so David, you know, I'm reading all of his poetry, and it's just, you know, over and over and over again. I think it's very intentional that I'm reading through the Psalms right now, is just that reminder of what has God done and what he can do. And I think that is this element of getting through the middle of the messy part of the miracle, right? Is that you always look at what God has done. And that's why it's so important to be in God's word, is this reminder, like, but this is who I serve. This is who I serve. Like, I can look around me and see all the potential pitfalls, the hurt, the pain, the fear, you know, all of those things. Like, I can look around and see that, but who do I serve? And that is a powerful perspective to keep in the middle of a miracle, because I do think that is the most tempting time to just give up or give in.
Yeah, when it gets tough, you know, the beginning, it's like running a race, right? You know, and the beginning, you're all for it, or not even a race, just anything you do where you put a goal to it. When you first start, you're all over it. Yeah. You know, and you're focused, and you're in it, and you're moving, and then,
wow, this is going to be really good. This is going to be awesome.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome. Like, I can't wait, and blah, blah, blah. And then you tend to not even see where you came from. And so then when it's in the middle of whatever it is, and it's getting harder, you're like, really, do I need to keep going? Yeah. Should I just
every
stop?
Setback feels like an opportunity to step away. Like, I think that's really what it is just like, okay, well, that's a setback. Maybe that's just where I stop, you know? And I just think, yes, you and I process very differently. Like, I think it's kind of unique in the fact that in this particular storm, you know, I held you that first time, but you've definitely held me many times since then. You know, I think I process a little bit more in layers than probably you do.
Like me. That's then inferring.
I think you went to big picture quickly, and it's not that I think I also will go to big picture pretty quickly, but definitely can mourn through the layers, and I think that's part of it. I think when this messy part in the middle is the part that everybody wants to skip over. You know, it's the part that just, I either don't want to do it at all, or I just want to run over. And I do feel like this part of it is where you get to really get to know Jesus. Like, this is where you get to put faith to the test, because you can't see how everything can turn out. You can't anticipate every possible outcome. Man, if you apply this to your marriage and especially reconciliation, there's so many aspects that you can apply it to. But I know for me, even in our reconciliation process, like I thought I had walked out this journey with God before we really came to the opportunity to reconcile, right? And I did. Like, Jesus held me in amazing, crazy ways. But the growing of my faith after we actually started that journey back together was even more intense, because that was when it was like, oh, okay, well now I have to trust God with my heart in a new way. Now I have to trust God with my spouse. Now I have to, like, there was just layer after layer that God worked on me.
I think during these times is when your prayer life should just grow exponentially, right? Before things like this happened, I was just kind of thinking of Sunday, what was talked about on Sunday. And it was, this time where it's like, people will tell you, well, you need to pray about it. And you're like, all right, God help me or whatever. Kind of just like these, not necessarily superficial prayers, but just kind of like these, like, all right, I'll pray, but what can we really do? And I think that challenged me I mean, I understand the power of prayer. So that's why it was like, I felt it was weird when I was like, man, am I doing that? Cause I'm living proof of the power of prayer, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm, where I'm at right now, that is solely because people were praying for me. Man, people I probably will never meet that were praying for me, right? And so I understand that, but I guess it's not until now that I was like, okay, I need to really get into this. Like I need to seek, right? I need to seek God. I need to seek his will. I need to pray for these things and not just this prayer of like a wish, like you're just kind of throwing it up in the air, but more of this prayer of like, I have faith. I know you can do this.
The prayer of expectation.
Yeah, I know you can make a way. I know that you can do these things. I know you can. I've read it time and time again. I've seen it happen. I've lived it. Like I understand, like I know you could do this. But then how many times are we praying and we're praying for that miracle, but we're really not believing that it could happen. And I'm not saying you don't take action, but
or that if you just magically throw a prayer out there that you get the result you want.
Yeah. And this isn't, what is
name
that?
it and claim it.
Yeah. Prosperity gospel. And like, that's not what we're talking about at all. I don't believe in that. I believe that when Jesus is like, you ask not because you have not, but when you're praying and seeking him, your heart's desires become what he wants for you. They align with him. And so then, it's more in line of what he wants you to do.
Like even when you recognize like in the shower where it's like, okay, well, this is selfish motivation.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I think you're talking about is like all of a sudden where you're like, oh, I get to see.
But like to have the faith, and I think this is where I was even challenged this morning with this faith side, right? Is to have this faith of the woman that touches Jesus.
The hem of his garment.
Because I feel like I have that faith, but I don't know. I mean, all the people, right? Or a lot of the people that Jesus encountered, they had this faith that like, all I have to do is touch him, not even him. All I have to do is just to grab the hem of his garment. I'll be healed. Like, I know it. Or like one of my favorite stories in the Bible is when the century's talking to Jesus.
A centurion.
And he's like, you don't have to come to my house.
Yeah.
Like, I command people So I know what you can do. You say it's done, it's done. You know, and that was a non-Jew, right, that had this faith. This, you know, that just had this faith that it was going to be done, what he asked for. And I think that's what I've been challenging, because it's like, I need to seek more, but also understanding that, man, he can do so much. Like, he can do what we can't think can be done.
Yeah.
Right. And that's happened where it's like, well, what about this? Well, what about this? Well, no, that can't be done. Well, no, you have to do this, and that can't happen. And that's never happened. And it's like, no, that's not right. Like, okay, maybe it's never happened, but it can happen, right? Anything can happen. And that's
the miracle part of it.
Yeah. And that's that part where I've been challenged the last few days. I mean, especially yesterday, you know, where it's like, am I not, you know, I'm not saying I'm not praying earnestly, or I'm not, you know, quote unquote praying correctly, but it's more of just understanding that do I have, like, it's like, okay, here's a great example. It's like when you ask for healing, right? And you're praying for someone, and, you know, you're praying for them, but in the back of your head, it's like, well, you know, doctors can figure this out too. And, you know, I have never seen anyone get healed like this. I've never seen this happen, but, you know, we read about it in the Bible. So, you know, I'm going to pray for it, but I don't really think it's going to happen. You know, that's kind of what I'm talking about, but we've seen it, right? Like, we have a close friend that was going through a lot, and everybody started praying for her. And then she went back and everything's gone.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not, the doctor didn't do anything.
No.
She didn't miraculously figure something out and make it disappear. Like, it's gone. And that's a miracle. And we've seen it. And we see it time and time again in different things. And so why can't I just pray and go like, yeah, like,
God can.
This is what could happen. And if it's your will, then it could be done. I mean, I love, like, our son, our oldest son, like, he just is like, oh no, we'll just pray about it.
I know.
Like, there's no question.
I'm like, you know, you have to raise $10,000 to go to this. And he's like,
well,
I'm not worried about that.
I'm not worried
God
about
will
that.
provide.
Yeah. And he did.
He did.
And it's just, and he did without him, like, you know, struggling, trying to figure this out. You know, he worked, he got a job, and he started working and saving money. But then, you know, he had this last little bit.
It's like the floodgates of heaven opened.
And he's been like that all the time. Remember, he prayed for snow. Yeah. Remember that? You know, and it's just like, but his mind, it's like, no, we pray about it. Like, it's fine. Like, yeah, I'm going to have the money. Yeah. Like, I'm not worried about that. I'm not stressed about that at all. You know, that's this faith, this
expectant faith.
And I don't even want to say, you know, he's not a child. So it's not like, you know, when you have your toddler and they start praying in these things where they're just like, yeah, this is, you know, where the Bible talks about childlike faith. And that's what it's talking about. He's not a child. He's struggled. He's been through things, you know, and for him just to be like, well, no, we just pray about it. It's fine. Like, I'm going to go train now.
I know who I serve.
Yeah. And it's there's no question.
Trust. It's such a trust that we're meant to have. We're meant to have that. Yeah.
And I feel that experiences are double, you know, they're what I want to say. It's like, it's a double-edged sword, right? With your experiences, because I look back at my life and I can count miracles that have happened, right? Count situations that I've walked away from that I probably shouldn't have walked away from, right? Count situations that haven't gone as far as they could because of him. Like, there's no other reason why it never went that far. right? Or didn't get in that situation. Like all these things that I could look back on, and then just our marriage and my relationship with Christ, like all these things I could look back on that are miracles that he's performed. But then I'm like,
but I don't know if you got this, God.
Yeah. And so it's like I could fall back on my experiences, but at the same time, it's this double-edged sword where it's like, well, maybe not this time.
Well, I think this is too why I love so much like reading the Psalms, is because it's not that in the middle of the storm we don't have emotions, right? That we just don't struggle, but it is this overarching recognition that we are supposed to develop this trust that says, but he can, but this is who he is, but he goes before me. I just listened to a message and just talking about how, we focus so much on the miracle when Peter walked on the water. We focus on Peter, but we don't even think about the fact that Jesus was walking on water, because it's like, well, it's Jesus.
Well, it's Jesus.
Like, he made water, But it was like this whole message just about like focusing in on Jesus, and that he was watching them. And it wasn't that he didn't let them go through the storm. Like they were in the storm. They were petrified. They thought
and for those guys to grasp that concept or that story, those were professional.
Right. This was what
fishermen.
They did. Yeah. They weren't just like afraid of like, oh no.
They were
There's
in
like
the
a little
sea
rainstorm
all the time, you know? And so for them to be terrified of what was going on, like that's a significant battle they were going through.
And it just emphasized in that moment the power of knowing that in the storm that he's with us, that he's watching, even when you don't feel him.
Yeah.
Even when you're just like, well, okay, I don't know where you're at. It's like, hey, I'm watching. Like I told you I would take you to the other side.
Yeah.
And he told that to the disciples before they got in that boat, that he would meet them on the other side. And it's like, that's crazy to think about in that, whole aspect. But then also the recognition they pointed out as well, just that when they asked who it was and he said, it is I.
Yeah.
They had to have already been trained to hear his voice. That it was, that he didn't have to say, it's Jesus. Like they knew his voice. They knew it. And that is what gave Peter the faith to step out of the boat. And I just think it was a really powerful thing for me to recognize too. It's just like, like he is always there. No matter what you're going through right now, like Jesus is there. He's with you. It doesn't mean that we get removed from every storm. It doesn't mean that you don't have to go through the middle of the miracle. Like we get to read the miracles in the Bible in a few chapters. We get to go and get on our podcast and share our story in a few hours.
Yeah.
And you don't know all the years of struggle that brought us to that place, the years of conversations and rebuilding trust and hurt and shame and all of those things that were the middle of that place. The times when we were just like, why are we still doing this? Like, well, I'm still hurting in this way. Like you don't see that. But if you're in that right now, that's why we're doing this, so that you can know that on the other side of that, there can be something that you can't see right now. And that Jesus is with you. It's why over and over and over, we're always pointing to him, and you're right. We want to all develop this like expectant faith. Yeah. Like that's the God that we serve. Like this God,
I mean,
it's who we serve.
You look in the Bible, like verse after verse, chapter after chapter, it's that's what it is.
Yeah.
Right. Look at these heroes in the Bible, like these men that chased after God, that did his will. And I mean, like even with David, like he had no qualm about taking on Goliath.
Yeah. Which is just crazy. It's like crazy from a human perspective.
Yeah. And I think that we hear the story so much that you get lost in that. You don't get lost in that. You don't understand like
the gravity of what he faced.
Yeah, this is a teenage boy and there's warriors all around him
who are terrified.
And this is their job. Like, these are professional
fighters,
warriors, and they are terrified, and they've had experience. They've beat other kingdoms. They've seen what God can do. They've lived out, seen a king that was in God's will, seen what was going on with God at their side.
Yeah.
They lived it out. They lived it, breathed it. They're professional, and they were terrified.
And David, how dare you defy the armies of the living God?
And then just steps over like, okay, like, this is what I'm going to do to you. Mm-hmm. Right. And I'm going to chop your head off and hold it up. Like, mm-hmm. this is what's going to happen. No hesitation, no anything. Just like, no, it's just like we're talking about with our son. Like, I'm not worried about how much money I need. Like, this is what God's calling me to do. So he's going to provide for it.
And it's like that, looking at the battle, like that initial battle, I think it's also easy to just miss the training ground that David went through. Like, that's, I think, what people have to recognize. Like, David went through a training ground, right? Like, David fought a lion, right? Yeah. Like, David fought a bear. Like, he had walked with God. And so when he faced the giant, it was with the knowledge of the God that he served. Yeah. And it wasn't the last giant that he faced, in his life. It's just the recognition always, and you can see that so much in the real rawness that is in the Psalms, is just like, I'm going through this battle, right? Like, so many times he's running for his life. Like, people are literally out to kill him. Yeah. And it's like, but God, always but God. And let me have hope in his word, and let me have hope in his promises and his precepts. And just over and over and over again, he reminds himself of the God that he serves. I
think we as generalizing, right? We want the after picture, right?
Of course,
like you see, I know in the 90s when I was growing up, that, like, I don't think it's that big of a thing anymore, but we used to see all these before and after pictures.
Yeah.
And then they come out to be a scam, like, years later you find out.
Yeah, we want the edited image, right? Yeah, like, it's all perfect.
You're at the before and you want the after, and you want it immediately, and you don't realize, or you're not thinking, or maybe it's not even that you don't realize, but you don't understand the amount of work
the renovation
that goes
process
into to get to the after picture.
Yeah.
Like I even like what I wanted to do for a living, like, I saw the end state, right? And I saw, like, my I don't even know how to say it. I was going to say naiveness.
Naivety?
I think
that's how it is. Yeah.
I was going to say that, and I felt like it was wrong. But anyway, I see the end result, like these other guys. Right?
Of course, right. You don't realize.
Like, man, that's what I want to be. That's what I want to do. Like, look at them. Right. Look what they're doing. Like, look what they get to do. Look what they're, all these opportunities, all these things.
Right.
It's like, okay, that's what I want. And then the middle started, right? I was already the before, then the middle started. And then I quickly realized how hard I had to train, how hard I had to be focused.
How easy it was to quit.
Absolutely. You'd see it to the left and right, and you'd see people leave immediately. And it's like, man, but I want that after. And I had to go through so much to get there, and then not even realizing that after isn't done. Like, then you're still
in the process.
It's still in the process.
Right.
I still need to seek God. I still need to work on my marriage. I still need to be a parent. I still need to, all these things. Like, I still have to do those things.
I remember specifically being angry almost at God at, when you came home feeling like this should just be like my whole miracle. Like, I wanted you to come home and then just be this, like everything just redeemed in that moment, and like really almost getting angry about it. Cause I'm like, I've already walked through this whole process, and really, like, I really want a miracle, not any of this like hot mess miracle, like that's how I really felt. And it's so funny now looking at my own self and realizing just how much God had to teach me still and us. And like, if he had just brought you home and let's say everything was just like as it was today in that moment, like we would never have learned all the lessons. We would never have developed such a passion for what God can do. It wouldn't have prepared us for this moment in our life.
No.
Right? Like there's just so many things.
Yeah, but even, kind of like what you were saying, going back to David and the training and the things he went through, those other men had done the same thing, right? Those other warriors had defeated.
Yeah, had other battles.
Had
But that was their own strength they were relying on in a lot of ways.
Yeah, no, I understand all that. But what I'm saying is like, just because, like, yes, we were more prepared, right, for what comes up, but we're still not, like, it's still not easy.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Right? And you still have to step into what God wants you to do.
Yeah.
Like, you have to lean into Him. You almost have to
step into, like, the faith again.
Well, you have to. Like, I mean, because, and that's kind of like, okay, let's take that story of David and Goliath, right? The difference was that David understood God's role. That's really what it comes down to, right? Like he understood God's role. Like he's like, no, Israel is God's chosen people. He's not allowed to do that. So if no one else is going to do this, I'm going to step in and do it. But those other guys, I guess, forgot God's role.
You're afraid.
Right? And so, but they all had experience in combat. They all had hardships. They all saw probably friends die. They all saw, victories, multiple victories. Like they all saw those things. Some of them probably felt like they were, immortal in a sense, right? Like non-defeatable, like just being able to crush it and not worry about anything. And then when this happens, all of a sudden no one's stepping up.
Yeah. Because you see with your eyes, right? You look and it's like, oh, that's an impossible.
So I think that you can have all the experiences in the world, but if you're not willing to lean into God, then you're just going to be stuck right there
in the mess.
and afraid, right? And I think it was even said this Sunday, like, why are we afraid of anything? We shouldn't fear anything. And it's so true. I mean, it really is so true. Like, why are we afraid of anything? Right? If the worst thing happens, I'm going to be living my eternity with Christ.
Yeah.
Right? Why am I afraid of anything?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it is. You're so right. And it's so easy to get consumed, I think, with just looking at the giant. Like, I think that's just the reality is just
like
you're
focused
looking there.
on.
Yeah, I'm looking at the giant. Like I'm looking at it and I'm like evaluating all the potential, ways I could, die if we were just talking about an actual literal giant that you're staring at. But take it down to, your real life. And it just feels like you have all these giants and then you're just going through every possible scenario, every possible negative outcome, trying to figure out everything that you can make happen on your own. Like, I just think the more that we do that the harder it is to look up. Because it's just, we just get to the, like, I'm going to make this happen in my own strength. And it's just easy to just stare at the giant so much, be in the fear so much that it's hard to hold on to faith.
Yeah. Like so focused on the separation that you're going through instead of what God can do, and you were right. Like earlier when you were talking about when we coach couples or we sit across from couples and maybe we've been with them for a minute, right? And they're still like in this place of, I mean, you could see it sometimes where it's just like wearing on them, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, guys, like we need to pause real quick. Remember 2 months ago?
Yeah.
Where you guys were? Remember a month ago? Remember last week where you were?
Yeah.
And where you're at now. Like, yeah, it's
almost like you
toll.
can see like their whole demeanor change.
Yeah, because it's like, I mean, I equate it to, like I joke about us being, well, you were always crunchy and about me being crunchy now. And, but we decided like, hey, we need to revamp our health. Right? We need to like get focused on this. You know, I look at it like if I'm not healthy, then I can't do what God wants me to do.
Right.
I can't do it to the fullest.
Yeah.
Right. I don't have endurance. I don't have strength. I don't have focus. Like I can't do it. He can give me strength.
Yeah.
But ultimately, if I'm
we want to
just
honor
like,
the temple of God,
absolutely. Right. And so, you know, specifically in that realm where it's like we're eating clean and doing all these things and focusing on that side of it, and you start seeing progress. And then I get like this. I don't think you get like this too much, but I get like this where I get frustrated. And then you have to go, well, remember where you were.
Yeah.
Like, do you remember that, right? You know, and then I'm like, yeah, I do, but, and it's like, no, do you like look back, right? Track your progress, look back. Where were you? Okay. Like I'm still in the middle of this,
still worth going.
Still but
worth
yeah,
doing.
But if I hadn't done anything,
yeah,
where would I be? You know? And so it was this, it's like and that happens to me all the time. I have to have this check where I need to look back and not dwell on the past, but I need to look back and go, where did I come from? What was going on?
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't journal. I probably should. Like, I don't journal. I've tried over and over again, and I end up like putting it down. You know, it's just a hard thing for me to do. But, you know, something I've learned in even with my career is like everything's real data driven, right? And if you're not collecting that data and if you're not writing that stuff down, you tend to forget.
That's true.
And you just live in that moment of failure. If you feel that it's a failure, when in reality it's not a failure, because if you look back at the data, it shows that you're on the right track. It shows that you're trending this way, right? Yeah. That you're doing this, but you don't know that unless you are able to check.
Or better yet, like God takes our failures and he's just like, boom, redeems it. It's like crazy.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, if you're not, you know.
Yeah, you should have some record, like whether you do physically write it down or not. But I mean, I remember going back and looking through the journals that I wrote when everything happened and just going back and weeping. And I was not crying because of the pain I was going through. I was crying because how many times God showed up? Over and over. I was shocked because I wrote it down. All the times, all the verses, all the people calling me, the prayers, the songs, just meeting me over and over and over. So it's something I really need to get passionate about again, because it's unbelievable. When I looked at that, I was like, man, I didn't even feel pain when I was reading through everything that I was going through. It was, man, God showed up. He showed up for me.
Yeah.
Like when he says he's close to the brokenhearted, he's not lying. He's there. You know,
and like right now, you want to stop, but man, think if you don't stop and you keep pushing, and you know, you get to this end, or you get to the out of the middle, and you have this chance to celebrate with God. You know, just like you're saying, like you open those up and it made you cry, but it's these tears of awe.
Yeah. Literally.
Of like, wow, Jesus was with me. Like
look what he did.
Look what he did over and over and over again. Like it hasn't stopped. And right now in the middle of whatever you're going through, it hasn't stopped.
Yeah.
There's still those moments where he's meeting you. He's going to meet you. He's going to meet you. And yeah, I mean, I was challenged, right? Like I need to have the faith of I can just reach and just barely touch him.
Yeah.
And it's going to be okay. You know, and now we have so much more access than that.
Right. And we take it for granted.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, challenge for this week, I think I'm going to do 2. One that you recognize, like that expectant faith that God, I think, really wants each and every one of us to have, to know who he is. And something that I think really does help in this process is start a God moments journal. This doesn't have to be anything dramatic. This can just be where you decide, hey, if God shows up in some way, a verse, a friend, a text, a song, whatever it is, that you just write it down and you just begin to keep a record of all the moments that you see him in your life. Because I think if we start that right, then those moments when we are struggling, it's like, man, you can look back and say, man, I've seen how God has shown up here, 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 here. And it gives us faith to know that he will continue to do so. Just like when we read the word of God and we see all of the people in there, like that's also meant to increase your faith, to make it expectant. And I mean, I think Brad and I are both preaching to ourselves tonight for sure, just reminding ourselves of the God that we serve. And he is able to do immeasurably more than we can ask or imagine. That's a beautiful promise to rest in.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see you next week.